We just got some new information coming out in regards to the upcoming live action Snow White movie starring Rachel Zegler because there were some previous box office projections for the opening weekend, which already looked bad enough for this movie. But if this new information is anywhere close to being true, then this is just devastating news for Disney. According to the updated tracking data shared by The Hollywood Reporter, the film is currently poised to gross somewhere in the range between $48 and $58 million domestically during its opening weekend. Right now, $53 million is seen as the target number. This is a fairly notable drop from the first projections, which had Snow White pegged for a debut between $63 million and $70 million. Now, already, a $63 million or even a $70 million, $80 million, even let's say $100 million domestic opening weekend for this movie is not a good number for it considering how much they actually spent on it. But let's just look at this. $53 million is kind of what they're expecting right now. To put that into perspective, the Marvels opened up with just under that at $46 million domestically. And in total, it brought in just over $206 million at the global box office. And this movie did so badly considering how much the budget for that just exploded during the production with all the reshoots and other things. There's no one who's even trying to defend that movie was profitable. You get that right now when it comes to Captain America Brave New World. Some people are trying to say like, oh, it's only $180 million budget. That means it needs to make $400 million in order to be profitable. It's like, no, that's not really how it works. It's going to be much more than that, but there's people who defend that. No one's defending the Marvels, and I've seen some posts like this one right here over on X. That's where I first heard about this, why I started looking into it. Snow White is on track to earn a solid $53 million in its domestic box office opening weekend. The film had a $200 million budget. Now, I don't know what they were smoking to say that it was only a $200 million budget because unlike with Captain America Brave New World, which was filmed domestically, so they don't necessarily have to disclose how much they actually spent on it. We know, or at least have a better idea what they spent on Snow White because a lot of it was filmed in the UK. And for people who don't know, when you're filming a movie in the UK, you actually have to disclose how much you're spending on that movie for tax reasons over in the UK because you have to file it under their laws. And this article from Forbes that came out November 14th, 2024, actually has some of those tax disclosure statements for how much they spent in the UK. And just according to this alone, at least at the time of this article was written, the budget was way higher than that. Disney has revealed that the cost of making its live action remake of Snow White had ballooned to $269.4 million, 217.7 million pounds by the end of 2023, putting the movie on course to blow its budget more than a year before it is released. Now, keep in mind, this is saying by the end of 2023, they got the tax filing. So this article was written last November. In 2023, at the end of that year, they disclosed that they spent nearly $270 million on this movie. Now, keep in mind what happened in 2024. Well, they underwent a lot of reshoots. There was actually a couple rounds of reshoots that they shot for that movie. Not to mention they replaced a lot of the human actors that were supposed to take place of the dwarfs and replaced them with a bunch of CGI dwarfs. I can't imagine that that's actually any cheaper. A lot of speculations when you take this into account and also the whatchamacallit, the reshoots that they're doing and the added CGI, then you factor in marketing and promotional for this. It's not inconceivable that the budget for this movie is probably close to the $400 million range, but let's just assume that they never spent a penny more on this movie after 2023 with everyone who was working on those reshoots and all the promotional stuff. Let's just assume that all that stuff was free. They still spent nearly $270 million on this movie. Now, with a budget like that, this is a movie that needs to make at a minimum of $800 million, probably closer to $900 million or $1 billion at the global box office in order to be profitable. That's when you're taking into consideration the theaters taking their cut out of it because the studio doesn't get all of it. The theaters aren't going to play movies for free. So the studio gets a fraction of that. Still, so this movie probably needs to make generously $800 million at the global box office, but realistically, it's probably closer to $1.2 billion because the budget is probably closer to the $400 million mark. So when you're looking at this and it's saying that they're expecting it maybe to hit $53 million, that just shows that this movie is set to lose a ton of money. Even the low end of this range would eclipse the $35.4 million domestic opening of Mufasa the Lion King. Still, Snow White would be trailing the debut of a majority of Disney's live action remakes. 4 of those titles opening with over $100 million domestically. The Lion King holds the record with $191.7 million debut. And with what The Lion King was able to make during its box office run, that's what Snow White needs to make in order to just get its money back. And right now you can see they're trailing way behind that. And a couple of others, Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, grossed over $90 million in their openings. There's also a sizable gap between Snow White and the likes of Cinderella and Maleficent. Snow White is scheduled to open in theaters March 21st. The film reportedly sports a production budget of $240 million. And like I showed you, it's way more than that just as of the end of 2023, making it one of the most expensive Disney live action remakes during the build up to its release. Snow White has been a lightning rod for controversy as elements such as Rachel Zegler's casting to the portrayal of the dwarves have generated backlash. The mixed word of mouth could be impacting the box office tracking. And I've talked about this even recently, how Rachel Zegler was given that interview with, Mexican Vogue, where they're more or less trying to create a puff piece about her, giving her a chance to backpedal on some of the past statements that she's made. Because one of the things about Rachel Zegler is she's so toxic amongst fans online. She spent years attacking people, and then she realizes it's making the potential box office of the movie pretty bad. So I think a lot of people within Disney, some of the higher executives, the PR people, maybe even her own publicist, got a hold of her and said, you need to try to rehabilitate your image, because everything around this movie looks like it's just going to be an utter disaster. Every video that they've been posting online has been getting heavily ratioed, and all the discourse surrounding this movie is overwhelmingly negative. I think the only reason people are actually going to see this movie in general, not because they're actually fans of Rachel Zegler or fans of what Disney's doing with their live action remakes, it's just they want to see this as the pure spectacle that it is, because it looks like it's going to be an absolute train wreck. And I think a lot of people just kind of want to see, because this has been going on for years now because of all the delays and reshoots and other things like that with this movie. I think a lot of people are just curious, okay, we've been hearing about this for so long now. How bad is it actually going to be? And that's probably the only people who are going to actually pay to watch it in theaters. After that opening weekend, assuming that it has a $53 million opening weekend, it's probably going to see a steep drop off during its second weekend. When it's all said and done with this amount of money that they're making during its opening weekend, it might bring in around $400 million if things go really well for it and it overperforms. But even then, $400 million at the global box office, it's still going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars for Disney, and that's putting it in its best foot forward. So right now, Disney has to be worried about these projections, but there's really nothing they can do at this point. They've been going all out trying to rehabilitate Rachel Zegler's image and trying to get people excited about this movie, reminding them about the original Snow White and trying to draw connections into this one, but it's really not going to work out. This was a bad bet on Disney's part, and they're just going to have to face the consequences of that. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think it's actually going to do better or worse than what's being projected right now? Comment below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.